Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be particularly hard. I am basically continuing on my IVF series and infertility, well, I guess it's my infertility series, and today is the hardest out of all the videos that I've had to film. So before I kind of get into it, let's just do a little bit of a recap. So in the previous videos, I talked about my struggle getting how I was struggling to get pregnant on my own, and my process into going to the fertility clinic and doing IUIs. And then I moved on to IVF, and where we ended, I had just finished my IVF cycle and had not done embryo transfer yet. So this time we are going to be talking about my experience with the embryo transfer. And I'm sure that you guys have already gathered from the title that I ended up having a miscarriage. And so I'll kind of talk about that aspect, and then we'll move on to what happens next. So, okay. So after my IVF cycle, I could have made either two choices. I could have done a fresh embryo transfer, or I could do a frozen embryo transfer. So I decided to not do a fresh embryo transfer because the IVF was really hard on my body, and I was going to have to do more medication to do the to prepare my body then right away for an embryo transfer. And I kind of had a mental health milestone that I had been planning a trip to go visit my friend in Chicago, and I wanted to not be worried about being pregnant at that time. And so I took a little bit of a break after IVF, and I kind of let my body reset. And then it wasn't until July that I chose to move forward with a frozen embryo transfer cycle. And so basically, in order to do that, I waited for my period, and then they actually put me on birth control because my cycles are irregular. And so they put me on birth control to kind of better schedule when I was going to have my period. But after my period, I immediately started on a estrogen. So it was an oral pill that I was taking 3 times a day. So I was doing 3 pills of estrogen a day for about a week, and then I upped that to 3 pills of estrogen a day plus 2 estrogen suppositories. And a suppository is where it goes up into your vaginal canal. So that was the suppository. And then about 6 days before embryo transfer, or 5 days before embryo transfer, no, I think it was 6. So 6 days before embryo transfer, I started my progesterone. So progesterone is, so the estrogen is to kind of help thicken your lining in your uterus, so your endometrial lining. And so the estrogen helps thicken that because you want a nice, thick and fluffy lining for the embryo to implant into. And then the progesterone is a hormone that basically feeds the embryo. So that's what the doctors told me, that the progesterone was food for the growing baby, food for the embryo. And because I didn't have a natural, we weren't doing it on a natural cycle because I have PCOS, I did a medicated cycle. So that meant that I had to basically take a lot of progesterone. So I started with 3 suppositories a day, and then every other day I did a progesterone shot, and the shot goes into your glute muscles, so basically into your butt muscle. And it's kind of a scary procedure. Not really procedure, it's kind of like, at the beginning it was really scary because the needles are quite long, and I was a little bit terrified. So here we go. So I start off by numbing the area first with this ice pack. This is like super essential. It really helps with the pain of the actual shot. And then I draw up the liquid using those needles, and then this is the needle that I use to actually do the shot, and then here's my progesterone and oil. So I make sure to prep the area first with an alcohol wipe, and then roll it out in the end with this roller, and then put all the needles into my sharps container. So I just did my first shot of progesterone and oil. I was very nervous about it because honestly, the needles are really scary and a lot bigger than my other ones were. So I iced the area first, and then next time I will put a heating pad on, just because like it's supposed to help the absorption after the shot. So you do the ice first, and then you do the shot, and then you're supposed to do the heating pad, and then you roll it out. And it did feel good to roll out the area. It felt less, like the stinging kind of went away. The shot itself wasn't that bad. I couldn't see it, and so it was just like a really quick, you know, shot. But it was the injecting the oil, the progesterone oil, that was, I could feel it. It wasn't like, ouch, 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 but it was definitely not comfortable. And doing it for an extended period of time is not gonna be fun. So that was my very first round. I kind of just got used to them. And so then I had my embryo transfer on July 29th, and it was a perfect embryo. I think it was a 4AA, and it was just a beautiful little embryo.
Okay, so I'm gonna send this to your, the images to your...
So I am waiting for my bladder to fill up just a little bit more before we can go and do the embryo transfer. It just needs to be like at a perfect spot so that they can see the uterus better. And I have my loving husband right here. Come over here. So we're very excited. I'm feeling anxious and nervous and a little terrified, but overall extremely excited. A little overwhelmed with emotion just because I've been waiting for this for so long. And it's a lot. It's a lot. But I'm really happy. Are you happy?
Very happy.
And I felt fine afterwards, and then I was continuing my progesterone, I was continuing my estrogen, everything like that. I did feel different, but it wasn't like drastically different. I wasn't really having, I was basically just tired. Like I felt really tired. And then on day 9 after my transfer, I had my very first pregnancy test, and I'm like shaking so much that I can't even hold it up. I gotta put it down. I've never been able to see this before. Came back as a positive, and it was literally the most exciting day of my life. So I did my first at-home pregnancy test, and it was positive, and it was the most amazing feeling I have ever experienced. And because I had had so many negative pregnancy tests in the past, that having +1 was like my absolute dream come true. And my blood test came back as having really good HCG, which HCG is the human growth hormone that they test to make to basically let you know that you're pregnant. So my HCG levels for that day were 220 or 213, which is a good number. That was clear that I was pregnant. And then I had a second test 2 days later, and that test is really a super important test because it shows, so your HCG levels are supposed to continue growing, so you're supposed to get a rise in it, and every 2 days it doubles. So my levels on the day 9 were at 220, and then my days my levels a couple of days later were at 660. So that meant that I had a really good normal rise. So everything was looking great. I didn't have any ultrasounds yet because the baby was too small to basically see on an ultrasound. You just weren't going to get really any information. And I felt I had my first craving was for spicy food, but I didn't have any food aversions or any morning sickness or anything like that. I mainly just felt super tired, but it wasn't every single day. And I did notice that I had a lot more cold sores kind of popping up during that time. And everything was looking great. I was so happy and excited. And all of my friends knew I was pregnant because they all knew that I was doing frozen embryo transfer. I was also really open with it on social media. So pretty much like everybody in my life knew that I was pregnant, and I was super, super excited. And then on Saturday, so a week, I was just under 6 weeks pregnant. I was about to have my scan, my very first scan, to see the heartbeat, the baby heartbeat. But on Saturday I had spotting, and I know that spotting is super normal, but I was really scared. And then later that day I had a blood clot.
Hey, so today has been a really rough day. I was having a really good day. I got to see my family, and I was just like hanging out, and then all of a sudden I went to the bathroom and I noticed some spotting. And then I've been kind of having really light spotting for the rest of today. And then all of a sudden, like, I had like blood clotting. So really nervous and really worried that I'm gonna lose the baby. This is really stressful.
And that was like, I mean, I basically like dissolved. I knew that something was wrong, but the bleeding went away. And on Sunday I spent the entire day in bed and I didn't have any more bleeding. It was basically just a little bit of spotting here or there, and it was like, it was brown. It wasn't even bright red anymore. So I was kind of starting to, the fear was starting to dissipate. And then on Monday morning I woke up and I was just covered in blood. There was so much blood. And at that point I knew that I was having a miscarriage. And at one point, this is gonna get a little bit graphic. Well, not graphic, but just, like if the blood scares you or anything like that, I would just, not continue. But at one point I felt a lot of pressure and I didn't understand what was happening. And so like I kind of put my hands like this down there because I didn't understand. And just the fetal tissue just came out of my hands, and I started screaming for my husband, and he just walked in, and I had blood all over my hands, and there's blood everywhere, and I'm holding like this fetal tissue, and he just dropped down to the ground, and we were just grieving together. And then once I kind of was kind of like, you know, cleaning myself up a bit, you know, I tried laying back in bed because I was bleeding so much. There was so much blood. And I ended up going to the ER. I was worried that I was hemorrhaging just because there was a lot of blood. I wasn't prepared for how much blood there was going to be, and there was also just huge blood clots and, you know, fetal tissue and, you know, everything like that. And when I was at the emergency room, they did a blood test, an HCG test, and my results came back as over 3,000. So, like, my numbers were really good. And so they did an ultrasound, and I did a over my stomach ultrasound, and they just really couldn't see anything, you know, because the baby would have been too small. And then, you know, at that point they were thinking that maybe I could possibly still be pregnant because my HCG levels were still high. And for some reason I just had bleeding. But once they did the transvaginal ultrasound, it was clear that there was no baby anymore. The baby was gone. So once we got that confirmation, I was released from the hospital. I wasn't having I wasn't hemorrhaging. I was just having a miscarriage. I just didn't realize that there was that much blood with the miscarriage. And I went back home and bled pretty heavily, was pretty immobile for the entire rest of the day. One of my friends, you know, very kindly went and got me these gigantic pads, basically the level 5 overnight pads, because there was just like, you know, I really needed a full coverage, you know, and I was, you know, just in a lot of pain. I was having a ton of cramping. I was just, you know, having, you know, I was a mess. I was extremely grieving. You know, I was grieving the loss of my baby. My husband was grieving the loss of his baby. And I was a mess. And then Tuesday, I went back to my fertility clinic, and they did a blood test, an HCG test, and my levels had started dropping. So, you know, the previous day when I was at the ER, my levels were, HCG hormone, you know, levels were at over 3,000, and then the next day was down to 1620. So, yeah, it was just another confirmation that I had miscarried. It took me about a solid, I would say, I was in a lot of pain up until Friday. So I had my miscarriage on Monday, and then on Friday I was still having a lot of cramping, still bleeding, but it was mainly the cramping that was really the issue. And then, you know, stopped bleeding just this last Monday, so a full week later was when I had stopped bleeding. And then I went back in for an HCG test on Tuesday the following week, and my levels are back down to 35. So this is not the end for me. I have 12 other embryos that are frozen, so I do not have to do a full another round of IVF. I'm just going to do another embryo transfer. And I'm actually not going to really take time in between because I have waited a very long time for this, and I just want to have my baby. So my husband said something that really helped me, and he said, even though we lost this one, we did make progress, because I had never been able to get pregnant before. So now we know that I can get pregnant, and the doctors are saying that there was nothing that I did or could have done, that, you know, there was a 99% chance that it was just something that was, you know, wrong with the embryo. And like, you know, of course I beat myself up every single day over it. You know, what if I, you know, moved around too much? What if I lifted something that was too heavy and I damaged, you know, the baby? Or, you know, what if I wasn't sleeping enough? What if, you know, what if this? What if I was having too much sugar? What if, you know, just like everything in your mind goes to what did I do to cause this? And my doctors are saying that there was nothing that I did to cause it. It just happened. They say that a lot of women actually experience miscarriages. It's just not talked about that often. But even friends that I know, I have a lot of friends, and I follow a lot of people on social media who lost their first pregnancy. And so I am comforted by that. But I am absolutely terrified that I'm going to have another miscarriage. Like, I'm so scared that I'm going to have another miscarriage. So like, even though I'm ready to start back, you know, pretty much right away, I'm so terrified that there's something just fundamentally wrong with me, that I won't be able to have my baby. It's a really scary feeling. I think that this next pregnancy is going to be different. I think I'm gonna be more scared, because I'm just always going to have that in the back of my mind, what the miscarriage was like and the fear of having another one. So my miscarriage just happened, so I'm still very much my body is not ready yet for another embryo transfer. So what I'm going to do is that I need to have a normal cycle first. So, you know, my body needs to go through a normal cycle. So about a month is considered like a normal cycle. But because I have PCOS and I have extra long cycles, if I don't have a natural period by the end of August, so right now we're at the end of July, but so at the end of August, if I do not have a normal period, they will force one with medication. But if I have a normal period in the month of August, then right after my bleeding, I will go on estrogen again. And then from the estrogen, I will start my progesterone, and then after that, it will be the embryo transfer again. So it is nice to kind of for my butt to get a break, because I was only halfway done with my med cycle, you know, when I had the miscarriage. I was only 5 weeks in, and you need to be on the progesterone for 10 full weeks. And so I was only halfway through. And I was doing progesterone shots. It increased to, once I got my positive pregnancy test, they increased my progesterone shots to every day. And that was really hard on my body. So it was really hard on my butt. Like, I was getting these big bruises, and it was just a lot. So I guess that's the only positive to kind of come from it. But it's not really much of a positive, because now I'm going to have to do a whole another 10 weeks. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to have a healthy baby. And so I will start that again, and hopefully this next one will be a good healthy pregnancy. And I'm going to keep that in my mind, to be positive, because I have a tendency to think that the worst is going to happen. So I'm going to try really hard to be positive. But that is all the update that I can give you right now. It looks like I will have another frozen embryo transfer in late September or early October. I don't really know much more until I have my next period. So that's all I have for you now. And hopefully the next time that I do one of these videos, I will have really great news and be able to show you a, little baby in my belly, show you like a little bump, but I don't have any of that right now. The positive is that I was able to get pregnant, and I held this little tiny life inside of me for even just a short time, but at least I know that I can. So that's positive. I just have to keep looking at the positives. So that's it for this video. I hope you have a really great day, you guys. Bye.